Midnight Cowboy wasn't just the story of a Texan hustler and a sickly con man. It was a full-blown rebellion against Hollywood's squeaky-clean past. Filmed on the filthy sidewalks of 1960s New York, this was the first X-rated movie to win Best Picture. But behind the Oscar gold and iconic lines lurked a chaotic production filled with accidental genius, culture shock, and dangerous improvisation. A dying actor, a hidden real-life trauma, and a lawsuit over rats. This is the strange, gritty truth behind the camera. Here are 20 weird facts about Midnight Cowboy that even the most die-hard cinephiles don't know. And stick around, because fact number 21 involves a banned foreign version and a government cover-up. Let's dive in. 1. That iconic "I'm walkin' here" line? It wasn't in the script. Dustin Hoffman didn't plan to yell at a cab. He almost got hit by one. While filming on a live New York street with a hidden camera, a real cab blew a red light and nearly mowed Hoffman down. Instead of breaking character, Hoffman pounded the hood and shouted, "I'm walkin' here!" The line felt so raw and authentic that director John Schlesinger left it in. But what fans don't know is that the line saved the shot. Without it, the entire scene, filmed with no permits and no second takes, would have been unusable. Hoffman later explained, "We had one take. That cab would have cost us the scene, so I stayed ratso. It wasn't improv, it was survival." 2. Jon Voight got the role because he was the cheapest option. Jon Voight wasn't the studio's first pick, or second, or third. Michael Sarrazin, Lee Majors, and even Warren Beatty were considered for Joe Buck. But when the budget kept shrinking and the studio grew more nervous, Schlesinger went with the most affordable option, an unknown actor willing to work for scale. Voight was so desperate for the role, he agreed to work for just $17,000, barely a fraction of what Hoffman earned. He later joked, "They hired me because I was cheap, tall, and could ride a bus." But what no one expected was that his vulnerability would redefine masculinity on screen. He didn't just play Joe Buck, he became him. 3. Dustin Hoffman sabotaged his own good looks. By the late 60s, Dustin Hoffman was being called the unlikely sex symbol after The Graduate. But he hated the label, so he destroyed it. For Midnight Cowboy, Hoffman begged to be made grotesque. He asked the makeup team to stain his teeth, blacken his fingernails, and give him a greasy limp. He even insisted on walking with pebbles in his shoe to get Ratso's lurch right. Hoffman told a reporter, "Ratso was dying. I wanted him to smell like it." The studio panicked. This was their breakout star, now looking like a diseased raccoon. But Schlesinger backed him. It wasn't vanity. It was war against typecasting. 4. The studio tried to bury the X rating. When Midnight Cowboy was slapped with an X rating, United Artists panicked. It was the first major American film with that label, a kiss of death for box office hopes. Executives begged the MPAA to reconsider, arguing the sexual content was implied, not explicit. But the themes, male prostitution, same-sex encounters, and general grit, made it untouchable for a PG or even R rating. What the studio did next? They quietly released it anyway. They never fought the rating publicly. Instead, they gambled that controversy would drive curiosity. And it worked. Midnight Cowboy went on to make over $44 million and win Best Picture. Not despite the X, because of it. 5. The film's flashbacks were based on real trauma. Joe Buck's disturbing flashbacks weren't just narrative invention. They were inspired by real pain. Director John Schlesinger revealed later that he drew heavily from real-life cases of sexual abuse and psychological breakdown when crafting the haunting dream sequences. Some of the visuals, the frenzied cutting, the slow pans over half-naked bodies, the shrieking laughter, came from reports he'd read while researching the underbelly of New York's hustling scene. Voit didn't know until later. He said, "When I saw those scenes in the final cut, I felt sick, because I knew it wasn't fiction. This wasn't stylized trauma. It was reenacted agony." 6. They had to hire a rat wrangler. For legal reasons. New York streets were filthy, but filming there uncovered a surprising legal obstacle: the rats. In the scene where Ratso and Joe sleep in an abandoned building, live rats crawl nearby. But animal welfare laws required that all rodents on set, even sewer rats, be registered and managed. The solution? A professional rat wrangler. The crew hired a man whose sole job was to collect rats, clean them for camera use, and then supervise their performance. Yes, someone was paid to coach rats. One escaped mid-scene, leading to a city health inspector shutting down the shoot for a full day. It wasn't metaphorical grit, it was vermin-infested realism. 7. Schlesinger was nearly fired for using real homeless extras. Many of the extras in Midnight Cowboy weren't actors. They were real homeless men. Schlesinger insisted on shooting in actual shelters, alleys, and soup kitchens. The gritty authenticity shocked the studio, which feared legal blowback if any unvetted extras caused problems. One exec threatened to replace him. "You're turning our movie into a social documentary." But Schlesinger stood firm. He even paid some of the homeless extras out of his own pocket when the studio refused. It wasn't just cinema. It was a quiet rebellion against Hollywood's sanitized version of poverty. 8. The ending on the bus was kept secret from crew. The heartbreaking bus scene wasn't just tragic, it was top secret. John Schlesinger told almost no one that Ratso Rizzo would die on the ride to Florida. Only Hoffman and Voit knew the real script. Everyone else thought the story would end with the pair walking into a bright, beachy future. When they shot the bus scene, Hoffman had to stay in character while the real passengers around him reacted in confusion. The woman sitting nearby? She had no idea Hoffman was acting. The bus driver was even told to keep driving until he saw Schlesinger wave from the side of the highway. It wasn't just a twist. It was an emotional ambush for the audience and crew alike. 9. Andy Warhol's star was cast. Then stabbed Warhol superstar Sylvia Miles only appears briefly in Midnight Cowboy, but her involvement led to real-world danger. After her role aired, a man who claimed to be obsessed with the film approached her in Manhattan and, in a drug-fueled frenzy, stabbed her outside her apartment. The incident made headlines, but was quickly buried to avoid tainting the film's reputation. Miles survived and went on to embrace her newfound infamy, but she never walked alone in the city again. It wasn't just fame. It came with a blade. 10th, Dustin Hoffman was sick with the flu. During key scenes, Hoffman's sickly appearance, as Ratso wasn't all makeup. During some of the most intense scenes, including the one where he collapses on the stairs, Hoffman had a raging fever. He was vomiting between takes, barely able to stand, and dangerously dehydrated. But instead of halting production, Schlesinger leaned into the illness. He rescheduled scenes to exploit Hoffman's condition, capturing the kind of physical collapse makeup could never simulate. Hoffman said later, "I wasn't acting in that stairwell. I was dying. Not method, just misery." Go ahead and like and subscribe, because the wildest facts are still coming. From secret gay bars on set to a deleted scene the Vatican tried to get banned. 11. The film was secretly shot in gay bars and peep shows. New York's underground sex scene was notoriously secretive in the late 60s. But Midnight Cowboy went straight into its heart, filming in real gay bars and adult theaters without permission. One sequence, where Joe Buck tries to hustle in a peep show arcade, was filmed guerrilla style, with a hidden camera inside a functioning adult shop on 42nd Street. The shop owners had no idea. Even more shocking, some of the background extras weren't extras at all. They were real customers, caught on film during live business hours. Schlesinger took the footage to the editing room and blurred a few faces, but left the rawness intact. It wasn't artifice, it was real sleaze. 12. The film sparked an FBI investigation. In 1970, Midnight Cowboy drew the attention of the FBI. After winning Best Picture with an X rating, conservative activists demanded an investigation into its financing and distribution, claiming the film promoted moral subversion. The FBI launched a quiet probe into United Artists, looking for connections between the film's funding and radical countercultural groups. Nothing came of it, but the Bureau kept a file open on Schlesinger for several years afterward. He wasn't just directing actors, he was under surveillance. 13. Voit starved himself for the shirtless scenes. Jon Voight wasn't naturally lean during filming. To capture Joe Buck's wiry, underfed look, he went on a crash diet that nearly hospitalized him. For the first few weeks of production, Voight lived on water, black coffee, and boiled eggs. He refused to eat during night shoots and skipped meals to maintain his empty physicality. He later admitted he passed out on set during one of the shirtless hotel scenes. His rationale? Joe was broke. He wouldn't have had breakfast either. Not a body double, just a starving cowboy. 14. The script was rewritten daily, even during filming. Waldo Salt's Oscar-winning screenplay didn't arrive on set fully formed. In truth, Schlesinger constantly revised the script mid-shoot. Dialogue was changed the night before filming. Entire scenes were restructured on the spot. And many of the now famous moments, including the rooftop argument and the Florida bus finale, were heavily reworked during production. Jon Voight once joked, "We memorized our lines an hour before the cameras rolled." Hoffman, always improvisational, encouraged the chaos. Salt hated it until he won an Oscar. It wasn't a polished machine, it was glorious improvisation under pressure. 15. Dustin Hoffman used a rotten banana as an acting tool to prepare for Ratso's hunched posture and sickly odor. Hoffman went method in the most bizarre way. He kept a rotting banana in his coat pocket. Crew members noticed a foul smell following Hoffman between takes. He refused to explain, until one day the banana disintegrated in his pocket, soaking through the lining of his costume. When asked why, Hoffman said, "Ratso is rotting from the inside. I wanted to carry that with me. Not perfume, putrefaction." 16th Schlesinger was grieving during filming. While directing Midnight Cowboy, John Schlesinger was dealing with a secret heartbreak. His longtime partner had just died of a sudden illness, something the director kept hidden from the cast and crew. Close friend Ian Baruma later wrote, "John was directing a film about loneliness and death while living it." The movie's bleak tone wasn't just on the page. It bled from Schlesinger's life into every frame. That final bus scene? It wasn't just about Ratso. It was John saying goodbye. 17. The Florida scenes were filmed in the middle of winter. You'd never guess it watching the film, but the sunny Florida ending? It was shot in freezing temperatures. Filming took place in January, and the cold snap was so intense that palm trees had to be sprayed with glycerin to look lush. Hoffman and Voight shivered between takes, with crew wrapping them in thermal blankets. In one shot, you can even see Voigt's breath fogging, something Schlesinger later digitally obscured. Not summer in Miami. Winter in Misery. 18. Sylvia Miles sued the studio. Over her short screen time, Sylvia Miles was nominated for Best Supporting Actress for just over 6 minutes of screen time. But when the film became a massive hit, and she wasn't invited to press events or paid residuals she believed she was owed, Miles filed a lawsuit against United Artists. She claimed she was promised significant billing and promotional credit, which never materialized. The lawsuit dragged for 2 years before settling quietly out of court. Miles kept the Oscar nom, but never trusted a studio contract again. Not just a cameo, a career-defining controversy. 19. The music score was fought over. And Nearly Cut, Everybody's Talkin' by Harry Nilsson is now synonymous with Midnight Cowboy. But the track almost didn't make it in. Schlesinger originally wanted an original score and commissioned composer John Barry, but when he heard Nilsson's track, he fought tooth and nail to include it. Barry was furious, claiming it undermined his work. The studio worried the folk tune was too light for such a dark film. Schlesinger stood firm, and when test audiences left the theater humming it, the studio backed off. Not just background music, an accidental anthem. 20th Hoffman and Voit considered doing a sequel. In the late 1970s, rumors spread that Dustin Hoffman and Jon Voight were quietly considering a sequel. The idea? Joe Buck returns to New York to avenge Ratso's death and find new purpose helping homeless youth. A script treatment was even drafted and circulated within MGM. But after Schlesinger passed on directing, and both stars moved on to new careers, the idea was shelved permanently. Still, for a brief moment, Joe Buck almost wrote again. Not just a one-off story, a legacy that nearly continued. Bonus fact: a foreign cut of the film was banned for promoting homosexual sympathy. In 1970, a heavily censored version of Midnight Cowboy was submitted for distribution in South Africa. Government censors not only cut key scenes, they banned the entire release, claiming the film promoted homosexual sympathy and undermined Christian family values. The South African ban remained in place until 1984. In that time, bootleg copies became symbols of rebellion among anti-apartheid artists and students. The film meant more than its story. It became a whispered resistance. Midnight Cowboy wasn't just a film about outsiders. It was made by them, for them, and in many ways, about them. Against all odds, an X-rated guerrilla movie about poverty, death, and broken dreams conquered the Oscars, shattered Hollywood taboos, and gave us one of the most iconic closing scenes in cinematic history. If these facts blew your mind, make sure to like, subscribe, and share with another film fan who thinks they've seen it all. Because Midnight Cowboy? It didn't walk the Hollywood road. It crossed the street and yelled, "I'm walking here!"